Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic, sponsored by Rack Coach. I have my good longtime friend, Steve Canter, on today from Va Beach, the 757, Virginia Beach. And I love the 757 because it's in Virginia, and that's where the goats are from. Steve, how are you been doing? And for those that don't know, tell the clinic a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here, brother. So good to connect, man. I'm so proud of you, what you got going on too, man. It's been fun to catch up with all the episodes, a bunch of those, and see all the legends that been on here, man. So thanks for including old Stevie Canter on here with I'm in good company with the ton of the guys that have been on here. It's been fun. Um, so I'm Steve Canter, man. I grew up in Virginia Beach, went to Kempsville High School. And much like most American males, I thought I was going to the NFL, the Major League Baseball, wherever, growing up, wanting to play sports, do it all. Had the great privilege of eventually playing at Virginia Tech. And then I got into coaching right after that, man. Once you're addicted to that game, you can't get out of it. So I had the great fortune also to come back and start working for Chris Beatty. Chris Beatty was a coach of mine. I'd known him since I was 14 years old. He coached over at Kempsville High School, and I had a chance to come back and start my coaching career after I was a GA at Virginia Tech after I got done playing, and went and started coaching at Lansdowne, man. And talk about an easy coaching life briefly. And then then I get handed the head job after that, and then the real work started. Once Percy and all them boys were gone, that was some real work for sure.
Dude, I had forgotten that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that.
Well, it was interesting because I heard him talking, that took me down memory lane when I was listening. I haven't taught land. I'm up here in Rhode Island now, man. I'm so far away from Virginia.
Dude, I don't even know where Rhode Island is.
I couldn't have put it. I didn't know how to point it out on the map either until I moved here. I took a job at University of Rhode Island, and I know we'll get to a little bit of the kind of my coaching career, but I came up here to coach at University of Rhode Island in 2012 and eventually 2013. And I've been up here since. So I've been up here for a decade, man. It's crazy how time flies. But man, it's small beach town, man. It's a good life up here now. I don't want to tell too many folks, but I went back to Virginia Beach and was working for Chris, and he just learned so much, man. He's been such a great friend and mentor to me for so long. One of my most, the longest tenured kind of mentor and friends that have been coaches, but he definitely impacted my life, man. I heard him talking about Coach Bendorf and kind of the Bendorf clan, and I was thinking the same thing about him and John Hale, Chris Ramey, all these guys that coached me, and then I eventually worked with them, and they worked for me at some point as well. It was cool, man. It was cool to listen to that episode as much as some of these other episodes I've had a chance to listen to.
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming on. Let's go to your mom and dad, your family growing up. I mean, I'm from the 804, but and vacation to us meant going to Virginia Beach for 3 or 4 days. I mean, we didn't go to Florida. We didn't go. My parents loved Virginia Beach, and always Atlantic Avenue, oceanfront. That was our idea of the beach, and it still is. I mean, I don't like any other beach other than Virginia Beach. So I am impartial to the 757. So what was it like growing up down there at the beach? Because, I mean, when you're from Richmond, you think it would be great to live at the beach because you could go to the beach all the time. But you guys, y'all don't even go to the beach and you're from the beach. It's because I guess it's there. So tell us a little bit about that, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that knows Virginia Beach, I grew up in Kempsville. So I'm inland, 25, 30 minutes inland. Honestly, growing up, we went to the Outer Banks all the time. So I didn't go to Virginia Beach, and honestly, maybe more than 1 or 2 times until I was in high school when I was driving myself down there. My parents, we have family friends or what have you, and that had places down in Frisco and some places down in the Outer Banks. So I grew up going to the beach every weekend, even in the winter. We would drive down to the Outer Banks, man. I was very fortunate. I grew up in a house with a single mom. My dad left a picture when I was 3. I haven't spoken to him or heard from him since, or seen him.
Never knew that.
Yeah. So my older brother and I, he said, "Hey, I don't want to see these jerks again." And honestly, that's about the one promise he ever kept. I have never seen him since, I ended up having a stepdad for a little while, but I think part of that helps me relate to a lot of the kids I've coached, man. They've come from similar backgrounds. And, I think they're a little surprised when I'm able to kind of share that story and say, hey, dude, I know what it's like, and I think it's an epidemic across the nation, unfortunately, that there's a lot of dads that aren't present, but it's again a struggle that I feel like has shaped my character. I had a rock star of a mom who showed up to all the games and got me there and all those things. And so again, I was, played baseball. That was my first love. And then it was like, I want to play football, man. I was kind of fleshy and doughy, and I needed to get somebody had to harden me up a little bit, man. I was a little bit of a mama's boy, and competing in the neighborhood, man. You come home with a bloody nose. Oh, so-and-so got me, and she'd say, get on out there and compete, man. And, eventually ended up 8th grade, met Chris Ramey. Chris Ramey was my coach in 8th grade. That's the first year I ever got a chance to play football, man.
And looking at him is like looking in the mirror. I mean, it's like who you became.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And I love the guy to death. I don't talk to him as often as I probably should. He's out. He finally got out and got a chance to just be dad, and husband. And it's cool to watch, from a social media standpoint. And we text a little bit, but yeah, he was a guy that really helped shape me, man. He poured a lot of heart, soul work into me, him and John Hale, who was, our strength and conditioning.
Oh man, look at this guy, Brad Robbins.
There he is.
Brad, you must have sent an emoji. All right. But I guess I'm the low man on the totem pole. I think you're from Snob Knob up near WLSD. My family's from Appalachia. All right. We're from a holler. And I mean, golly, Brad, I want to get you on. I want to get your dad on. I got all these old Appy people. They want us to talk about Big Stone Gap in Appalachia, Powell Valley in Appalachia. So, Brad, man, if you want to come on, just text me, text Steve, and we'll get you a link. We'll put you on here today, man. God, he's the best, isn't he?
He's awesome.
I mean, when did you meet Brad?
Many years ago, man. Probably right around Virginia Tech time. So 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, my dad was an Appalachia graduate. So my dad's from Appalachia and my mom's from Hopewell. So we always grew up going to watch Appalachia or Powell Valley play in a state championship, and how important football was down there. It's almost like you got Richmond, you got Northern Virginia, you got 757, then you got Southwest Virginia. So they were real proud. And his dad, man, I got to get Phil Robbins on this podcast. The stories he could tell, man.
No kidding.
Like Chris Beatty and Coach Ramey, I mean, man, those guys, they're like the GOATs. Do you remember the first time you met either of those guys?
I do. I walked into Kempsville High School. So I played for a gentleman named Bo Ludwig. Bo was a Norfolk State graduate. He's an old Vietnam veteran white dude who was about as hard as they come, man. And I played for him in 8th grade over at Larkspur Middle. We opened up the school. That was the first year, 1994, that the middle school was open. I was in 8th grade, and Ramey was an assistant under Bo, and he also was the JV coach at Kempsville. And I played 1 year of football in 8th grade. We played spring season back then. And I don't know what they do in middle school now, but I'm assuming probably similar because of the fields and all that. We played that spring season, and we had been a really good baseball team at Larkspur in the first year, and I played on that team. We went to a city championship, played football, and I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, man. They had that big 80-pound tackling dummies. We all had to carry them out there, and I'm dragging it. I mean, like I said, I was a little soft, and I remember playing, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to play again, man. I played a bunch of baseball that summer. I kind of was in that baseball mode. And Bo Ludwig called me. He left a voicemail on my answering machine. I don't even know if they're called voicemails back then, but he left a message.
I don't know anybody that has voicemail anymore. I mean, I guess text messages.
That's right.
It's crazy.
He left a message on my answer machine, one of the ones you could rewind, go back. And it was like, Steve Canter, this is Bo Ludwig. Be at Kempsville High School to get your equipment, Wednesday night or whatever. And I was like, I got to go.
How did he get your number? From Chris?
I'm assuming they had it through the school, because I played for him, in 8th grade, just a couple months before, but I was definitely afraid of Bo Ludwig. Like, I literally was like, if I don't go, he'll find me. That's what I thought. You're fit 14, and the dude's obviously not going to come kill me. He just wants me to play football. But I
Yeah.
was like, I got to go. So I went. And we were really good at Kempsville at the time on varsity. And I remember going through training camp. I'm kind of like, I still don't know if this is my thing, but I was playing, and I was offensive lineman back in the day, O-line, D-line. And I remember going to my first varsity game after that. And it's the big crowd, and we were good, watching these guys playing.
What year is this?
1995.
Okay.
1995. And we were a big team, but I remember coming over to get my pads, and Big John Hale's in there, big barrel chested, big strong dude.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting him, and I was like, holy cow, what am I cut out for this deal? I had long hair, I look like Kurt Cobain, thinking someday, Nirvana.
You're a surfer. You're a surfer boy, man.
Yeah,
that's what we
exactly.
called you.
I'm like,
Beach
where's the
boy.
Outer Banks, man? I got, I'm got a baseball cap on or whatever. And I was like, you better shape up quick, brother. This is a different sport. And so went in, man, I fell in love with it. But Ramey and those guys, Ramey was there. So there was some comfort level, and they whipped me into shape, man. And I've always been somewhat of a competitive guy, but like I said, I needed to be shaped, man, but it was fun. And those guys really hardened up my spirit, man. And to the point where now, I would say I owe so much to those guys, because I don't know what I would have accomplished when those challenges in life come. I don't know what I would have really reverted back to had I not gone through that process, man. And that's a lot of what you're preaching and talking about with all these great coaches, man, is, how much lives get changed and spirits get hardened and shapened and refined through all this process, man.
Yeah. And all these different guys that I've talked to, it pretty much boils down to a person being authentic and being their genuine selves. And we're going to talk about a lot of coaches today, but I'm going to tell you, man, I'm speaking from my heart. I'm speaking from my soul. Like, I feel the same way Mike Tyson does about fighters, man. I love coaches. I love football. I love coaching. I love players. And I've studied them all, just like Mike Tyson studied Achilles and studied Alexander the Great and Charlemagne. And Customato had all those tapes. So, maybe this is just the right thing for me to be doing. And that's genuine. Talk about that. These guys were genuine. They weren't phony. They were able to relate to kids.
They're teachers, man. They're educators, motivators, they're inspiration. And Chris talked about it a little bit too, but these guys were giving me a ride home when I was 14 years old, man. I got a mom at home who's working till 5. They can't get, I didn't have rides to all of these things. And, God forbid at that time, you didn't have activity bus. You didn't have some of this stuff. So here I was, Ramey's got a Mustang. I'd never even been in a Mustang. Here I am.
Like the new model, like when they changed the body style.
It was after that 5.0. It was the next one. Here Ramey is in his late 20s, I think, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's giving me a ride home. John Hale's got his pickup truck taking me home all the time after these workouts, man. Like, I don't know anybody that's phony baloney that is investing time like that. You know what I mean? And I'm not the only one that they did that for. And that's where, those guys poured into me. And I said, this is what I would like to do.
Yeah.
I always
say, I want to be him. That's I've been talking about this on the podcast. Mark Marrow, the guy that played Johnny B. Good, he says, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. But even it goes deeper than that. Mr. B said on the Lex Friedman podcast, surround yourself with people that you want to be like. That's the cheat code to life. And like he was talking because he wants to get into weightlifting. So he's surrounding himself with bodybuilders because they eat good, they go work out, and you become those people. So like you became Coach Ramey, and you saw that. That's what being a disciple is. And that they've displayed to you discipline. Talk about that.
I talk about this with a lot now as a dad of a 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, right? Like, I want to live honorably. I want to live into a point where these guys are looking at me saying, I want to be like dad. And these guys are working out with me a couple mornings a week and stuff like that. They're not doing that if I'm not doing it. Like, they might have dreams and aspirations, but I'm leading from the front. And
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. The group of coaches that were there, our head football coach, John Bowles, he never said a curse word. You know, he was dadgummit and all this stuff. And he said, if you hear me say it, you can say it.
Mm.
And so that was what I believe, you know, that's who I learned from, man. And these guys, and we had a lot of older guys in our program that poured into me as well. It was really an iron sharpens iron type of atmosphere and culture. But I was fortunate, man. The guys that I learned from early, I went on and had a chance to have some success as a player. And then I always continued to stay in touch with those guys. John Hale walked out with me on senior day at Virginia Tech, man. You know, like it wasn't just this, hey man, thanks for the 4 years. That I call that guy once a week now still, you know. And if I had the biggest problems in my life right now, I'm calling him. He's one of the first phone calls. And Chris Ramey's similar, and Chris Beatty could be similar, you know. So I'm fortunate, man. I was around some great ones, and I know not every coach is created equal. From an intelligence standpoint, knowledge of football, but also just that heart for changing people and helping people. That it's not the same everywhere, but coaches are built different, man.
Yeah, I mean, like Coach Joe Taylor always said, it is coaching is a ministry.
Yep.
And you know, someone said that a coach will touch more lives. I think it's Billy Graham. A coach will touch more lives than a preacher will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the exact quote, but like being from the 757, I'm from the 804. The 804 was always the little brother to the 757. But I understand why. You know, that's where the GOATs come from. Bruce Smith, Lawrence Taylor, Mike Smith, Bill D, Allen Iverson. I mean, Alonzo Mourning. Talk about being from the 757 and the pride that y'all have for the 7-5. Because I got to play with some guys from Va Beach.
Yeah, it's incredible because I'm not sure when you're in the thick of it, at least back then, you know, in the 90s, where, you know, obviously you had your hometown pride, man. Yeah, Sweet Pea Whitaker, man. You're watching this dude compete, you know, Bruce Smith, you know, the greatest defensive lineman, you know, of all time, those types of guys. And you're going, wow, you know, these guys are from down the road here. I think nowadays there's been, you know, a couple decades later, people are really spouting off about 757, and you kind of inherit that a little more. You woke up on third base but didn't hit the triple, right? Like, but part of that was I admired the guys that I was exposed to, had a chance to play against or with, because you were hunting, man. You know, you knew you were going to have to go play against some guys over at Western Branch who were all they were all on their way to go make a bunch of money playing a sport that you loved, you know, and those guys were going to battle. The Deion Dyers, watching him as a youngster, James Boyd over in Indian River. I mean, these guys, incredible. And you heard about them all the time, Ron Curry, etc. But then you go to college, and then that's when it gets fun, you know, because it is the whole, it's all 757. You know, I was at the same, you know, Virginia Tech, same time where, you know, Beatty was talking about all those guys from Deep Creek, but you know, I played with Darryl Tapp. I played with D. Hall. I played with Chris Clifton, James Anderson, all these guys that were from Deep Creek. And then, you know, Vince Hall was a freshman my senior year at VTech, and I was there as a coach after that. I played with the Adibi brothers. Like, there's a ton of talent that came out of there that, man, it was fun. And then it was fun to go coach the next crop of them with the Percy Harvins of the group and Damon McDaniels and these guys that all left to go do some fantastic things. It's cool to see that, man. And you know what? When I ended up back at Norfolk State as a coach, we always said, hey, if you leave, like, go spread your wings, leave, go to Tennessee, go wherever. If you need a home, we got you, man. We got
you can always come home.
Come help us win a championship in the MEAC, you know, and that's what we did.
Yeah, that makes me think about what Coach Leach said. You in coaching, the coaching profession, you can always move up, you can always go home, you can always spend more time with your family. So, like, those are the 3 rules to coaches in taking a job. But within Virginia, there is a rivalry between these different areas. But when we're talking about guys from California or Ohio or Florida or Texas or Pennsylvania, the Virginia guys, we unite, don't we? I mean, we take pride in being from Virginia. I mean, I got mad skills. coming on. He's the greatest rapper ever to come out of Richmond. He really was the first guy from Virginia to get put on, with Teddy Riley coming down there to Virginia Beach. And then Pharrell Williams being from Princess Anne, and Timberland. I don't know where he's from. He's on the other side of the water.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's Portsmouth guy.
Yeah. So, and Missy Elliott. I mean, there's so much pride in Virginia. And if you're from Virginia, I pull for you. Do you feel the same way?
100%, man. I love telling people like Pharrell is from Virginia Beach and just all those guys, right?
Chris Brown, love that. Michael Vick.
We loved that when we were in college. We always talked about that stuff to those guys that weren't from Virginia for sure. And now you think about what the Hokies roster looked like when I was in college. It was saturated with. At one point, I think 18 of our starters were all from Virginia. 18 out of 22 starters were from Virginia. You know, we had the Brian Randalls of the group. I mean, all these guys that were parade All-Americans and great players, they went to Virginia Tech at that time. You know, I was in there, the thick of it, where we didn't get out recruited by everybody. And I get it. You know, I know some schools now they all saw us on Thursday nights with a roster full of Virginia guys, and we were winning. And so they poked their heads in there into Virginia, came into 757 and Richmond and all these other places and started poaching some talent. And it's a shame to see it, because I know I want those in-state schools to be thriving, especially my Hokies. But because, man, they were tough to watch this year.
Yeah, I'm
last couple of years been hard, man. Been hard.
I'm a homer, and I'm a Virginia guy, and I don't beat around the bush. That I want to see guys stay and play in Virginia if they can. Now, I'm not saying that if it's ultimately a kid's decision, but I'm a home team guy. So you play your high school ball at
I was at
Kempsville, and then you went to a smaller school first, right? Yep. Coming out.
Yeah, I went to Concord College. I went to Concord College on a full scholarship. That was a D2 school in the Weeviac, West Virginia.
Man,
Collegiate Athletic Conference.
That's the side of a mountain, dude.
Yeah.
I got to tell a story. Okay, this is about Concord. It was Coach Jones this is Coach Jones from Concord College calling. He wanted me and my brother to come up on a visit. So I don't know, what year did you graduate high school? I was a senior when you were a freshman.
So 99 grad.
I graduated in 96. When I went to Concord College, they timed us in a 40. Did you have to run through a door?
No.
In the gym. We had a 40 through the gym and through a door.
Wow.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
Man.
That's funny.
It's
Concord University now. So I don't, over a number of years, man.
They don't even have that gym there.
They've gotten bigger. I had a pretty good experience there, but I gambled on me, man. I went there on a full scholarship. I remember signing the papers, and I told my mom that day, I said, listen, after, 2 seasons, I'm out. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go play major Division I football, period. I grew up watching Virginia Tech, Florida State, Miami, Florida State. That's what football was to me. That's what I wanted to do. I knew I had one shot to do it. If I wanted to be our age now, in our 40s, looking back saying, man, I wish I had tried. No, I don't live with regrets, man. I'm going to go take it on. I'll live with failure. Did my career turn out the way I wanted it? No, I mean, I played against some of the best teams best players in the nation, man. I was on teams that were at ranked 3, 2 in the country at any given time, man. Old Steve Canter from Kempsville High School. You know what I mean? So my career was fine. I earned a lot of respect for some great coaches. I played for a Hall of Famer and Coach Beamer. I played for a Hall of Famer, soon to be, hopefully, with Bud Foster.
Yeah.
I played for some incredible coaches and played against and with guys in my program that are all Hall of Famers, man.
Yeah.
And that are really good people, really good players. It was awesome.
So how did that happen? How did you go from Concord to Virginia Tech? What was that process like?
Yeah, I basically went in and told my coach, man, at Concord, I said, listen, I was a second team all-conference guy, linebacker in my second year there. And I said, listen, I'm going to go take a shot, man. I'm going to go walk on somewhere. I've just got 2 years of, or kind of a year and a half, whatever, 3 semesters paid for free. I said, I'm going to leave it in December right now, and I'm going to seek transfer. I'll walk on somewhere. I had a buddy that was at Virginia Tech at the time. I knew Coach, Brian Steinspring had recruited Virginia Beach forever. So I knew Coach Steinspring a little. I sent him an email, sent him a tape. I got a guy at Concord, this old boy, to make me a tape, put it on VHS, was able to send that thing out to some folks. VHS too, man.
Yeah, I know. I used
VHS.
to send them out, dude. I sent out over 100 every single year, and I never had to pay for anything, man. Meadowbrook High School, Chesterfield County, y'all spent a lot of money
Getting them tapes out there, man.
sending VHS tapes. It used to
Yep.
be like $2 a piece.
I know. And I remember even when I was
Or
coaching at
more.
Lansdowne, I was sending out DVDs still. We didn't have Huddle wasn't a thing yet, man. Mid 2000s.
Yeah, you know what I did? I might be one of the first, is I started uploading VHS to YouTube.
To YouTube. You're
And
a
I
smart
probably
guy
have,
though, man. You're
yeah.
a smart guy. That I was, I was done 2007 was my last year as a head guy. So YouTube was just kind of trickling into
In
the
2005, I got a guy that graduated in 2005 whose highlight film is on
is on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Oh,
That's
it's
awesome.
Rodney
That's a great
Nichols.
idea though.
It's Rodney Nichols. Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, dude. I should have started a YouTube then. But
I know.
Dude, I had stacks of VCRs upon stacks of VCRs. College coaches would come in and say, that's the most impressive thing. I'd buy like 10 VCRs at Walmart or Kmart, I was about to say.
Yeah, I know. Man. So I sent a bunch of them out, and but I was really, I said, man, I'm gonna pay in-state tuition somewhere. These guys they were hot. They were just coming off national championship appearance. They were hot. I said, you know what? I'm gonna go compete, man. My buddy, my teammate from high school, had walked on there out of high school, and he was competing. He was playing, and was doing well in the program. And I was like, man, I'm as good, if not better than him. I'm gonna go.
That was what was so great about Virginia Tech, was they would take walk-ons, and those walk-ons would end up being scholarship guys. And I had Coach Wack on here the other day, and I said, Coach, you did a great job, man, because you took guys that Virginia Tech should have took, that you took, and they became great players. And one of them, Stone Snyder, just committed to Virginia Tech, and that was the same day, dude. Like, so it was the recruiters, it was the relationships of that staff, and it was the importance of our state that built that whole deal there with Coach Beamer, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, those guys were they were there for a long time, right? And we all know, anybody that sat in the chair that you sit in, and some of these other guys that, like I did for 2 years as a high school head coach, like, you see a lot of faces coming in and out, and they're all they end up like tearing that patch off and put a new one on and working at a different school, right? And I always used to say, the best ones are the ones that don't talk crap about the schools that are down the road from them, because they might end up working there, right? Don't come in and tell me how bad Virginia is, and then you take a job there, right? So at the same time, the guys that come in and just talk about their own programs, but those guys were the Jim Cavanaugh and Brian Steinspring and all those guys.
Coach Cav, he's the GOAT. Coach Cav is the GOAT of Richmond. Him and Coach Reed and Coach Hansen, I put on a pedestal. But Jim Cavanaugh was the GOAT. Talk a little bit about Cav.
Cav is the grumpiest, most amazing guy. Cav. So I got to see Cav in so many different areas, right? So Cav didn't recruit me directly or coach me directly, but I always knew this white-haired, grumpy dude who was a stickler for detail, right? And so we all joked about Coach Cav, and I knew a lot of guys that played the position. He coached the Rovers and the Whips on defense, and he had a background as an offensive coach, right? Which I didn't really appreciate or know until I got into coaching. But the guy was an offensive coach, and he was whooping.
I never knew that.
He was an offensive coach for Mac Brown. He didn't go to Texas with Mac. They had a falling out.
Yeah.
Coach Beamer was ticked off because William Henderson and a bunch of guys from Richmond were going to UNC and not Virginia Tech. So he said, you know what? And remember, Coach Beamer and Cav played against each other in college.
William and Mary?
Yeah, well, yeah, because Coach Beamer was the corner and Cav was a receiver. And so that's always fun.
Wow, I want Cavanaugh in that matchup.
Yes. Yeah. Cav got some height, man,
Yeah.
But so listening to that story is great. Get those two riled up.
What is that story about? Because, dude, I've never heard that story.
When I was GAing, so I got a chance to see Cav not only as a coach when I was a player, but then I came and GA'd and I got a chance to work directly with Cav, right? So I'm working on Bud Foster's staff as a GA. So I'm working directly with Cav, helping with the Rovers and the Whips. And then I'm sitting next to him in the box. right? So I'm charting everything. I'm sitting next to Cav, man. And anybody that knows Jim Cavanaugh knows he's wound tight. Boy, he's wound tight on game days. Woo! So he's always like, what was that play? He's grumpy. And but he and I get along great. I've seen him. We do what we
Let's
call
get him
best.
on.
We have to, man. We got to get him on, man, because we do what we call best man's barbecue. There's about 20 of us that get together from Virginia Tech. We've been doing it for 20 plus years every year. And we've been doing it at Lake Norman outside of Charlotte. Cav lives in Charlotte. Cav comes over and sees us. He's come over and spent the day with us.
What side of Charlotte? In
What's
the
that?
suburbs? What side of Charlotte is he on? Is he in like
He's in the suburbs somewhere. Yeah. And so he drives out there and hangs with us, man, and tells stories, eats a bunch of bags of Doritos, and then gets out of there. But Cav's great, man. So Cav and Coach Beamer played against each other, and Cav, I say, Cav, who won? And I'll say it in front of Coach Beamer. Get Coach Beamer's like, he had no shot, Palsy. I shut him down, Palsy. I'm like,
that's what he called everybody, right?
Yeah. Palsy was his word. You had to be really good for Coach Beamer to know what the hell your name was.
Yeah.
You were Palsy until you had some accolades, dude.
So Palsy stands for pal?
I think so. Coach Beamer spoke his own language, man. Anybody that knows Frank Beamer knows that dude spoke like, he probably writes in hieroglyphics, man. He speaks completely different. Palsy and I don't know, come on, Palsy. He just mumbles and grumbles a little bit, but he's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the program under Coach.
I'm just thinking about, like, I had a coach ask me, he said, Coach, the last two places I've been, he's a high school coach. The last two places, you probably heard me say this in some of the other podcasts, and I'm continuing to ask guys this. Coach, the last two places that I've been, I was able to relate to the kids, but these kids look at me and go, you don't look like me. Like, you're trying to change me. You can't relate to me. I mean, look at Jim Cavanaugh. I mean, this is a guy, I think he's from Norfolk or he was a high school coach around there and went to William & Mary, played for two Hall of Fame coaches, Coach Lou Holtz and Marv Levy. Mm-hmm. How was he able, as this old grumpy man with white hair and the greatest recruiter? I always say he recruited Michael Vick to Virginia Tech, and it changed Virginia Tech forever. How was that guy able to relate? How were kids able to relate? Aaron Rouse, who's now a state senator. I mean, he coached him. They look nothing alike. It has nothing to do with what you look like. So talk a little bit about that, Steve.
The thing I will always say about Jim Cavanaugh is when you're dealing with Coach Cav, you know where you stand. And so there's not a lot of this, there's no slime factor. I remember some of those coaches coming in and out, and trust me, I dealt with some amazing coaches. Like Tom Bratton came in the office, and I dealt with him, and all of these guys. I dealt with some really, really good coaches that I would trust and I think are authentic. And then you have some that come through, and you're like, man, I'm not sure he said one word that was true yet. And you watch that. So, but with Jim Cavanaugh, man, he is a straight shooter, and he is persistent. At the end of the day, I think his recruiting success came from when you talk with him, you know where you stand. You get this sense of, this guy's telling me the truth, not what I want to hear. He's telling me that. And then also he's going to be there, right? If he has to sleep on your doorstep to make sure he's there. Cav was serious about recruiting. He was. And because you dealt with him, he loves up coaches, man. He's going to call you up, and guys enjoy communicating with him. And like I said, I'm busting chops about how grumpy he is, but at the end of the day, we all know Cav's got his personality, but he was a good guy to be around, and he was a fun coach to chum up with and be in the coaching profession with. And he did a lot of great things for the profession, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's definitely underrated. And I mean, Mike Spencer, who I coached with at Virginia Union, he was head coach at St. Thomas Aquinas. He taught me, he said, Troy, you show people you love them by time and attention. And these great recruiters, these great coaches show the players their time and their attention. And it works. And it still works today, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can't imagine being in a game right now, though. I think this thing spiraled. I don't want to say out of control because players are kind of getting what they should get, not get. I don't know. Everybody's got an opinion on the NIL and all that stuff, but at the same time, Cav did it. The guys at Virginia Tech with Coach Beamer, they did it. They did it well. They got a lot of good players in the program because of their relationships with the coaches in the state. Because they could be trusted, and then they developed kids, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you take a kid that is, we did a lot at Virginia Tech with taking safeties and turn them into linebackers, right? They get them bigger and stronger because Mike Gentry was going to get you gentrified in the weight room, and you were going to be able to run faster, and you were going to play 8-man front defense, and you were going to play robber safety and do a lot of the things that made Virginia Tech famous on defense. And you needed to be fast to do it. And so they had a vision for developing, and people were more patient back then. They were more patient with, it's going to take me 2 years to play, right?
Yeah. You were going to redshirt.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to redshirt. And I think nowadays, obviously, everybody's quick to jump in the portal if they're not playing right away. And again, I don't know if any of this is good, bad, or indifferent. Coaches leave at a crazy rate too. So I'm not going to sit here and put a lot of onus on the players for any of this. I do believe in certain positions, if you ain't going to be the guy, go find a place to be the guy. Only one quarterback plays, man.
Yeah.
So I do have, I'm staring at my 2 kids that are 11 and 7. They got aspirations of playing major sports. At the end of the day, like, let's get in where we fit in. You still got to be about you to a degree, but team atmosphere, it does make a difference.
Yeah. So the 2 coaches that I want you to talk a little bit about that from Virginia Tech is I want you to talk about either one you want to first, and that's Coach Bud Foster and Coach Gentry. So if you could just talk a little bit about those 2 guys, whichever one you want to first.
When I think of both of them, I think of glue, man. Those are the guys that were the glue. Coach Beamer, in his right, giving him all the respect I can give him. Very organized, and if you talk to a Bud Foster,
I'm sorry, we didn't talk about Frank Beamer. I mean, just a little bit, but these 2 guys, he was the head, and these guys were,
they're the ones that made it happen, man. Right? You've got to have that gel and that glue in there. Talk about Mike Gentry. So I had a chance to be a grad assistant in the weight room with Coach. I still consider him a great mentor and friend. He was a guy that had expectations that there was no compromise, dude. There was no compromise. What
was his expectations? His way?
Not only his way, but the effort, the attention to detail, the discipline, and the sheer grit and determination to push yourself past the inner voice that tells you, I've had enough. And he did it in a way that was, I would call safe still, but at the same time, there was a fear. There was a fear, man, a legitimate fear that dude could break you.
The same fears you had at that middle school coach?
Yeah, same mustache too, dude. Same. Bo Ludwig wore a mean stash too. His was grayer. Gent had his was still had some brown and some vinegar in there, buddy.
Yeah.
He was a salty dude, man. And we learned quick that 6 a.m. meant 5:50. And you better be ready to strap it on and get after it. And if you get sunburned in the summer and can't squat, there's a lot more problems than you want to deal with, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about like the strength coach. I mean, their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and the strength coach might be more important. I mean,
I would take that in a heartbeat. I 100% agree with you. And coach wasn't into all this fancy, and I don't want to bash these guys. They're doing what they feel like they need to do. And their social media wasn't active when I was a player. And even through Coach Gentry's final years there with Coach Beamer, he ain't doing Big Squat Friday and dressing in Halloween costumes to come in and squat and all that nonsense, man. Like, dude was old school in a way. He kept up with modern science. We were doing a lot of the Louis Simmons West Side Barbell stuff for forever when I was
still
there.
Good today.
20 plus years ago.
I mean, they learned from the commies. They learned from the commies, and the commies were the best.
100%. We were doing box squats with chains. We were doing benches with chains and bands, and we were doing all of that.
The glute ham, you know, with all that.
Oh yeah, we had glute ham, reverse snipers. We had all that stuff,
gymnastics.
man. And you know, they could build a monster. I remember getting there, and I remember coming home for the first time after I had been at Virginia Tech, and everybody's like, "Where did your neck go, dude?" Like I had already stacked on 10 pounds of muscle, and it was serious business in there. And I started to become harder than a freaking grizzly, man.
Yeah, I mean, they hung. You know what Virginia Tech hung their hat on? They hung their hat on the weight room. They hung their hat on being gentrified and playing good defense.
Yep.
And you know, I guess that leads us into Coach Bud Foster and the win and the lunch pail.
Now, man, what's important now? I talk to my kids about that a lot.
And I don't even think I really started to realize what it meant until recently. And I mean, I think it really took me to have a losing season, to go 1-5 in that COVID season. And Mike Spencer went to Alabama, played for Bear Bryant. He studied Nick Saban more than anybody. I want to say two things about Coach Saban is he was like, Troy, stop focusing so much on the end result and focus on the process. That's what win means. What's important now means focus on practice, focus on the rep. Don't focus on the game and what your record's going to be, because that's really where coaches mess up. Is they're more focused on their career or the end result, and not what's important now. And even doing this podcast, people were upset I wasn't doing the clinic. But dude, when I did the clinic, I didn't get to hear anybody. Now I get to hear all of y'all. So it's like, okay, I'm getting a shot in the arm. Like, okay, I get to talk to Steve Canter, I get to talk to Chris Beatty. Like, I'm listening to the GOATs, and like y'all are reassuring me of what I already know is true, and I'm learning. So that's what win means. But the thing that Virginia Tech was great at, and it's Jules Montanar, when he interviewed with Alabama, he asked Nick Saban, Coach, what's the secret? And this is what he told him. This is what Jules told me. He said, some people are good at evaluating talent. Coach Kavanaugh was very good at evaluating talent. He knew what one of his guys were. He knew if you were one of his guys before you even were one of his guys. And then he said, some guys can develop talent. He said, but if you can do both, and that's what Virginia Tech did. They evaluated talent. They recruited the guys they wanted, walk-ons. I mean, what does that really – that doesn't cost you anything to take a chance on a walk-on. That's an in-state guy. And then they developed them. They did both. He said very few people can do both. And that's what they did. So I guess Coach Bud Foster, Hall of Famer.
Incredible football coach. Incredible preparation. So I had the great privilege of, I started off as a linebacker in the Virginia Tech program, quickly learned I'm not fast enough to play at that level at linebacker, right? Because you got to react. I moved over to fullback my last year, got a chance to actually get in some games, and obviously contributed on special teams. But I got a chance to sit in Coach Foster's room as a player and soak it up. He's great at building relationships. He's a straight shooter, but he's also a personable guy. He's a fun guy to be around. And then he's got that, obviously, he's got that healthy spirit on game day, brother. You better be ready for it. And then I had a great chance to come back in GA for him, man. I had already been a high school assistant, a high school head coach, a Division I AA at Norfolk State. I was the tight end coach. And then I came back and GA'd on defense for Bud. So you think about now my preparation at that time. I was a serious coach at that point, right? I'm not just some GA right out of playing where you don't have a damn clue. I've been in my own battles. I've run my own program, and so now I'm coming. I got even more appreciation for coach because I'm like, wow, I know how hard it is, right? A lot of dudes that get done playing and they were winning and they GA, they have no idea how hard it is. They have no idea how hard it is to win, man. And so I went in to work for coach, and it was awesome because I did all the film breakdown. So I probably knew that I would like to think when you do the film breakdown and you've been putting all this input in this data and watching these cut-ups with the team or with the staff, me and Bud probably knew the most, right? Like I would like to think that. But his ability to soak up all those tendencies and have the right 11 check and all these other things that, we implemented that from a standpoint of being able to scheme up what's coming, and then his communication with the coaches in the box and his ability to see things from field level. That is one thing I do appreciate. Having been a head coach and called offense from the field, you develop it, it, you kind of see it, Bud always put himself in a position during practice to see everything where he's going to see it from on game day too.
Where did he like to stand? Behind the offense or defense, or on the side?
He stood on the side. He stood on the side a ton.
Right at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he wanted to see it where he would from game day. And he sees those angles, and he can call out trap and do all these other things and I'm sitting up in the box thinking, man, I don't know how he sees this at this speed, man. But he's got an eye. The dude did it for 30 plus years, right? But at the same time, he had his series of what we did on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, all through the week. Wednesday night was a late night for him. He stayed and kind of finalized his play sheet, watched more film, turn his music up and do his thing. Everybody's got the hell out of there, and he did his own deal. But he was awesome. He was awesome to communicate on with game day. That was nerve-wracking, dude. I'm linked to him. And I remember I went back in G8 and we're opening up with Alabama. 2009. They win it. They had been okay in 08. They were now coming with a new quarterback, but they had Mark Ingram as a running back, and they had a bunch of good running backs behind him. And we were up in that game. But I remember I'm juiced. I think I took like 2 5-hour energies too, man. I was juiced to the gills, dude. Mm-hmm. And now you hook me on a headset with Bud, and I'm like, oh, it's 3rd 10, blah, 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 blah. He goes, hey, why don't you slow the hell down? And I was like, yes, sir. I got myself right. Quick, boy.
What does he want from you on the headset? The down and distance? What yeah. Does he ask you or you tell him?
So we had, I gave him down and distance, and Cav was giving him personnel. And personnel is nerve-wracking because everybody loves to mess with people with personnel now. Even in 09 and beyond, everybody likes to have that hybrid kid, and they wait till the last second.
I mean, what does it matter if it's 12 personnel? I mean, both those tight ends could go line up at receiver,
No doubt. Nowadays, for sure, but Cav would stress to death, but I'd give him hash, and I would give him down a distance right away, right after the play. And then Cav would give him the personnel. And then I would tell him in between series, that's when me and Bud are linked up. And he's like, hey, give me the last 3. What was it? And 24 zone. So, boom.
Like, okay, first down play happens. Like play formation. All right, you don't tell him the formation, then do you tell him the play? Because he don't even want that.
I'm writing all of that down in between series. He's going to ask me, and I'm talking about it to him. He goes, give me first down. What was it? And I'll tell him the formation. He goes, that was the 24 zone. I'm like, yes, sir. Boom, and we're going through it, especially some of the shorter series. He would know them all. He would remember it all. But he calls it
first, second, third.
Everything we did on defense at that time, and I don't know what they ended up doing when I left. Similar, because I would go back, but everything was based on personnel. So we would just call 11 check, and the players would make all the adjustment based on the formation. Because we would have 11 check in, and so if it was 3x1 11, we knew what we were going to. If it was 2x2 11, we had this. Offset back, boom, we knew that. So the players were the ones that made all the checks.
I call it the Virginia Tech defense. It's a 4-2 with a nickel and 2 safeties, man. And I called that the Virginia Tech defense.
Yep.
But I mean, that's what he was known for, man. And you knew. I mean, basically, when you run that defense, it's based on the nickel's probably going to go to the field. Okay. Yep. So, but whatever the formation is, y'all are going to adjust that thing. Y'all aren't going to, go to a 5-man. I know he got into his double eagle or, bear later. Man against Ohio State and everything and beat them.
Yep.
But y'all were going to do what you did,
100%. What was interesting was I was part of that last year. We were bad on defense in 03. Like that was when everybody was going to open formation offenses. We got our butts handed to us at West Virginia. We played on a Wednesday night. They had Rich Rod. That was year 2 or 3 of Rich Rod, right? We had beat him in 01. We lost to him in 02 at our place. It was close. And then 03 we go, and they've got Quincy Wilson at running back. They've got Rashad, forget his last name, at quarterback. He was a beast. Rashad Marshall, I think. And so Chris Henry at receiver. RIP for him, but he caught a 97-yard touchdown pass against us because we were still 8-man front. We weren't really too high, and if we were, the whip went back, and the whip was not as athletic. So that was the last year that Bud said, all right, we got to adjust. So in the offseason, after we went 8-5 in 2003, it was a down year. It was a tough year. We lost some players, but we actually, once we changed the scheme, he went out to Washington and he learned more too high structure, and we made the change. We started putting the rover back, and the whip was the down guy. And so we flipped everything, and we were playing a true nickel now instead of an 8-man front. And that's when we got salty for a while. 04, we won the league. 05, 06, 07, and 08, we played for it or won it every year. And we won 10 straight from 04 till whenever it was, 2011. We won 10 games, over 10 games a year. We were salty. And a lot of that was because of how good we were on defense. And we got a run of really good players too.
Yeah, and y'all were a ball control offense.
Yeah.
I mean, you play good defense and ball control offense, and you take care of the football, and it wins. So after you G8, I mean, I guess you G8 after you'd already gotten into college football. But the first time I remember really meeting you is, we have a mutual friend, Ray Gatlin, who coached at Lansdowne. He played college ball with me at Clinch Valley College. And I think the first time I remember ever talking to you was at a 7-on-7 that Chris Beatty. And I didn't ask him about that 7-on-7 at UVA in that game when y'all played Verona. You want to go ahead and talk about that when y'all was playing Verona? They had about 11 guys that went D1, and y'all had that kid from New Jersey.
Vidal Hazelton came and played with us. So we went up to play in the 7-on-7, and we went up there, man, and it's a long day, boy. I'm telling you, man. That was the early days of 7-on-7, man. I mean, I know people got tournaments out the wazoo nowadays, I'm sure, but we went up there, and we're a 7-on-7 team, man. We got 2 of the top 5 receivers in the country, and then Vidal Hazelton was actually a third top 5 receiver in the country. Yeah. He was supposed to come transfer to our school and play.
Yeah.
And something got haywire, but he came. And he was competing with us in that game, or in the day, and we were pretty good on defense and all that. But we were having a pretty good day, and then things got chippy, man. Verona's not going back down from anybody either.
No.
And we always much
y'all
like
were coming off a state championship.
We were coming off state championship. This is summer of 05.
Yeah.
We're going into it. Percy's a senior. Damon's a senior. Hazelton's going to be a senior. We got Kirby at quarterback, who ends up going to Elon. He's a senior. And we had some good defensive players. And Dwight Robinson's our D coordinator. I mean, just we had a good time, but we weren't backing down from anybody, and either was Verona. And, so it got chippy. Everybody got a little talkative, and I'm sure there was a big hit. There was actually a collision, and one of our kids ended up having to go to the hospital. Just with, and it wasn't anything cheap. It just was a collision. Everybody's playing hard. So that kind of kept us up there for hours, man. But we ended up.
Yeah, it was a late night.
And Chris had a reputation now, just in terms of, so me and Chris have known each other a long time, Coach Beatty, and Coach is not a punk now. I mean, he is a guy.
No, he acts like he's very mild and meek.
Woo, that boy.
Soft-spoken, but you could kind of see the other side of him in the interview when he talked about the Hampton Clinic and how he talked about, the guys from the other side of the water. They said those guys at the beach are soft. And that's when I was like, okay, like that's the other side to him starting to come out. Like just by him saying that, that's like a trigger. Like that gets you going. That like got me going. He's like, what? They said we're soft. Like,
Chris was no punk now. I mean, that was what I appreciated the most about him, man. I mean, obviously I had known him for a long time. The guy, I knew him since he was 24. Me and him got into it when I was in high school, man. I said something to him that pissed him off, boy. He chased me around this ISS room. We went at it, man. I picked up a chair.
Now that's the story.
I picked up a chair.
Tell that story. Get very specific with that one.
So we had block scheduling. way back in the day, right? So I would take my lunch, and then instead of going to study hall, I would go down to ISS and I would file some papers for coach, and I'd just shoot the breeze, man. And so coach was the ISS coordinator. And then we had Kurt Brown, which a lot of guys in the 757 know Kurt. Yeah, Kurt Brown was one of the big twins, went to UNC, played at Kempsville. He came back and coached me in high school, and then he ended up being the head coach at Granby and a couple other, other places. But Kurt's the nicest guy in the world. He's huge, 6'5", 260, and he's the nicest fella. But he was in there shooting the breeze too. Probably, thank goodness, because Chris would have probably whooped me at I was a junior in high school, and I said something to him, and because he was talking about Sedan Ellington. Sedan had played for Chris, so Chris was the middle school coach at that time.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
So he was coaching, and Sedan Ellington was there, who ended up playing at PA with Kai Parham and CJ Phaeton and those guys, and then Sedan went to Tennessee too, I think, with CJ Phaeton, and CJ's the best dude in the world too, by the way. He worked with us at Norfolk State. So I said something like, "Man, get off his nuts," or something they used to say when you were in high school.
Yeah.
He's like, "What?" And boy, it didn't take but a second, and coach is after me. Now I was quick enough for a second.
That's
boy,
a great story, dude.
I'm running around that ISS room. He caught up to me, says something else, and I'm grabbing a chair. I go for a chair. He's got me like pushed down on my neck, and so I went for the chair. Kurt Brown grabs the chair, and he's like, "Y'all two chilling, chill the hell out."
Yeah.
And me and Chris dapped it up, and I was salty though, boy. I wasn't happy either, and because I said, "Hey, listen, I ain't no punk either." Like I'm not backing down.
That's what's great about being a young coach.
Love it, man. You got to have that.
You got
and it's not like any of us went to tell anybody. Coach, the head man never knew about any of that.
No.
But so coach and I think he had a little respect for me though at that point. Like he's like, this dude don't back down.
Yeah, man.
And so we ended up, we were lifelong friends, man. We still are, but it was funny. And I watched him, and I came back, whether it was that Verina situation or, at the UVA deal, it was at our local 7-on-7s, against Rich and those guys at Oscar Smith. And because everybody wants to take down the big dogs, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you live that life too, I mean, everybody's going to get chippy, and it's usually the teams that aren't even that good. But, Oscar Smith was our rival, man. We went neck and neck with those guys for a bunch of games in the regional finals. So when we go against them in 7-on-7, it's chippy. It's competitive. And so there was plenty of times where,
and there's no referees.
Yeah.
So, it's like being I guess it's like being an MMA, hey, we're going to go out and do MMA. We're not going to wear any pads. We're just going to, see how it goes. And not even have a referee.
It's jailhouse football, man. We're like, whatever, man.
That's why I don't go to 7-on-7s, man. I've been banned from every 7-on-7 in Virginia, colleges. I mean, everybody wants to be tough without pads. And if someone takes a cheap shot on somebody.
Yeah, I'm not happy either. I'd run the ball on the one. A lot of coaches would be like, "Oh, we got him down." And I'm like, "Come on, coach. Like, come on, man. At the one, like less than a one." So I'd run an ISO in 7-on-7 and be like, "We got it, bro." Like, come on, man. Like, let's get real here. We're not playing goal line 7-on-7.
Yeah, that's why I only like playing for a winner, man. Let's play to get reps and just like a scrimmage.
But how you can't.
I know, trust me.
Guys ain't mature enough, man. They like to flex, and it is what it is. I'm up here coaching flag football. I won the Super Bowl this year, baby.
Yeah,
with my 11-year-old, we got it done.
He's the quarterback. He's the quarterback.
We had some coaches that were a little salty at us, but we got it done, baby. We started 0-2, and we finished. We went on a run, coach.
Yeah, I have a coach I know. I'm not gonna say his name out here because I know people are watching this on YouTube. But he always said, if the referees are not complaining about you and the other team is not complaining about you, then you're probably not coaching or playing hard enough.
Not competitive, bro.
That's
we had a couple coaches up here say he brings an intensity that is not suitable for 9 and 10. I was like, dude, hey, listen, no one rises to low expectations. That's what I tell them. No one rises to low expectations. If you want to have low expectations for not only your players, but probably your children, that's on you, man. You run your household like that. My kids know when they wake up every day, we're gentlemen, but we're competitors. I've got a giant canvas of Michael Jordan, and it says mindset, and it's in my hallway in my house. We got a lion on our shower curtain. We don't walk around timid, bro. That ain't who we are.
Yeah. I mean, you got to hang your hat on something, man. But
That's it.
talk about being a competitor, because like Lauren Johnson, when we first met, he told me,
talk about the GOAT, man. LJ, goodness gracious.
Yeah, I mean, Lauren told me, he's like, Troy, some people don't like you because you're a competitor. And he said, let's stay friends through this all. And eventually, you know, I was trying to get film on him from the coach at North Stafford because, you know, I wanted to get film early. And, you know, he got upset with me. But the coach of North Stafford was his buddy. So, I mean, I'm a competitor. So, I mean, if we're going to play, yeah. So, like, talk about being a competitor, because, like, Kobe's the ultimate. Like he said, losing is fun. Like, there aren't many people that think losing is fun.
I mean, bottom line is, what else is there, man? Like, I just don't. Life to me, it's not about achieving unbelievable success in terms of finances and all those other things. I've never really hung my hat on these green pieces of paper, man. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't, that's not what it is. To me, what fulfills your spirit? Mine is that process in the progression. How do I get myself better? And when I have something dangling out in front of me, which is a competitor, a guy that wants to either beat me one-on-one in a game, you know, across from me, or a team that's out there that I know can compete with us, that fuels every single hair that's on my body. That fuels my spirit, man. And I want to win. I want to be able to say, dude, I took this dude's soul, man. I took his spirit, because we out-prepared them and we out-gritted them. I'm not talented, man. The only talent I have is consistency. And I'm also not afraid of anything. And so that's what I try to instill in people around me is like, listen, dude, it's not about every trophy that you win. What it is about is, how many times did you lose and say, you know what, that 1-5 season during COVID, how did that fuel your fire? Did you say, maybe I'm not cut out for this thing and all that? Nah, buddy. Buddy.
I mean, we had this conference call, and I'm probably saying the same stuff all the time, but it was me, my brother, Shane Reynolds, who's the head coach at Mechanicsville now, and then my offensive coordinator, David Neal. And they were like, Shane was like, well, what are we going to do now? I was like, dude, like, we're going to keep doing what we've always done. And we were in the playoffs the next year. And then this year we lost to Highland Springs in the regional championship. But I mean, COVID, you couldn't work out. So, I mean, I hang my hat on being an off-season coach of a year-round program. Yeah, and I'm probably not as good of a coach with guys just show up, you know, and see how we do.
That's not a winning formula, man. You win games in January, February, all throughout the spring and summer, man. That's where you win your games at every level, right? Like, you can come out and, you know, NFL is a little different. You go get a free agent that's just going to ignite the program and change the world. And I get it. That can happen in college with this portal, right? You go get a rock star quarterback, it can change. But guess what? Every other guy that's out there, he was there in January. And he was putting in the reps, man. He was standing under that bar with Mike Gentry watching him, telling him if he got low enough on that squat. And he was standing back up with it, man. And there's a lot of things you learn from getting under that bar. And if you can't do it because COVID or any other circumstance, you aren't going to be as good. And the kids don't. Bottom line is, kids, adults, anybody else, we don't work out well enough on our own. Iron sharpens iron for a reason, dude. And when you have, I like to think I go hard by myself, but you put me next to a guy that's 25, dude, it's a race. If we're on a treadmill next to each other, it's a freaking race. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, you know, and that'll get me going. I'll blow a hamstring out before I let this 25-year-old get me.
So, like, I like Ja Morant. You know, he ran his mouth, you know, in this interview with these, you know, beautiful female reporters. He's done it a couple times. But, like, when he lost to LeBron James in that game, you know, with Shannon Sharp was talking all the junk, as soon as it was over with, like, he's dapping up LeBron. Like, can you be a competitor and then once the clock, a true competitor, and the clock is done and the game is over with, and then you still getting your feelings? Like, the real true competitors is once it's over with, Like he's dapping up LeBron, showing love, and people are showing love to Ja. Like the people who are salty and like don't want to shake hands, like are they really true competitors?
I 100% agree with you. I don't ever think I've never looked at the opposition as like I don't have to paint this picture. Some people have to do it, and maybe that's why I'm not just a lifelong champion of everything. But and I can't imagine being a professional fighter of any kind. But people that have to paint this picture of this person is some evil person for me to be able to actually go compete against them, I don't buy that, man. Like I think the situation where you're in this process of I've got to go do what I do the best that I do it, period. I want to do it better. It was the same conversation you were having about the simplistic nature of when you go into playoff games and you just do what you do. You were talking about Bill D, right? You say, hey, man, we are just going to do what we do better than everyone else because the nature of this game, now that it's getting bigger, and I actually was listening to Bill Walsh's book right after I was listening to y'all's interview. He was talking about the same thing.
Yeah, don't worry about the scoreboard. That's his deal.
Yeah. And he said, bottom line is, man, because of the nature of the game and how big it is, I'm actually going to shrink what we do so that now we don't get outside of ourselves trying to perform and do something trickeration and all this other stuff. All we're going to do is back to the basics and execute at such a high level. But that's the competitive desire is flat out, man. Like I'm going to do my job and I'm going to do it with such energy and effort to be able to compete. And then when I'm done, man, I got true appreciation for the guy next to me, man, and the guy across from me that did the same thing.
Yeah.
I just appreciation.
Just like the Mr. McDaniel, who played center for the Eagles, it was Buddy Ryan versus Bill Parcells, and I asked him that, and they said that they had a respect. Like me and Billy Mills, we scrimmage every year, and we want to beat each other in the scrimmage, but once it's over with, and we respect each other. So I mean, I guess you're just a true competitor. You understand it, man, and I guess some people don't like people who are competitive.
I think that's the fun of it, man. Like, just using this flag football season as an example, man. We were in the playoffs, and if you were an outsider watching, you're watching these 10-year-olds play. The execution, it was a game. It was basically, I think the final was like 52-40 something. It was fun.
That's what
I'm sitting there. And it was like every parent on the sideline over there was fine. They were loving it. I never say a curse word. I don't do any of that out here. I'm not acting a fool. I'm coaching. But we're running double reverse pass to the quarterback and all this stuff. And it looks like the symphony. Like the execution is awesome.
Yes.
And the coach is salty at the end of the game and calls me a name. And I'm going, Coach, what appreciation do you have for what just transpired? It literally was a fun game to watch. And it was two competitors that went until the final whistle, and it's flag. Obviously, there's not a ton of physicality, but at the same time, you got kids executing and having a blast and fighting and competing, and you're over here mad with no sitting of respect for me and just say, "Hey, coach, you did a great job, man." I told him, "Hey, I'm over there cheering for other kids that are on the other team."
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? I'm going, "Hey, nice job," and I know
you actually are the picture of sportsmanship that because of your intensity level, people think that you're not.
Correct. And if I was out there acting a fool and I'm using the F word and all this stuff around 9 to 10-year-olds, then come call me out on it. But at the same time, when I'm speaking to the rest respectfully and I'm speaking to my players and I'm holding them accountable, then come on, man. But yeah, like have an appreciation for the competitive guy across the way, man.
Yeah, like this year, I always said you got to do what you do better than the other team does what they do. But I guess if the talent level is equal, like I heard some kids talking about Madden in class, and I asked them, I said, do y'all play Madden with equal teams or unequal? They said unequal. I said, well, really, how can you determine who's better if somebody's just got better players? Like if you're a true competitor and you got an equal talented team, the team that makes less mistakes is going to win. So, I mean, I guess you probably could be like Percy Harvin's team and make a ton of mistakes and play like a team that didn't win a game and y'all would still win. But if it was equal, the team that makes less mistakes is going to win, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's still every sport is a game of
Execution. You have to execute.
execution. Execution. Effort and execution with an attitude, man.
On your Twitter, you have a picture with Jocko, and
Love it.
one of Coach Bald on our channel. He is a big fan of the Warrior Kids series.
Love it.
Talk a little bit about meeting Jocko, and what he's meant to you and what you've learned from him.
Yeah, I mean, those are the folks that know. Growing up in Virginia Beach, man, you've got such an appreciation for the SEAL community. Not only the SEAL community, but the Navy in general, man. You got a naval base, and then you have all the even-numbered SEAL teams are in Virginia Beach. And so you run across some of these guys, and not like they walk around, most of them don't walk around, hey, I'm a SEAL, right? But you end up meeting some guys and find out, hey, they're an operator, right? And I grew up, I saw the movie Navy SEAL with Charlie Sheen and whatever else, where they had like a retail headset that they were supposedly using in a war. But I was fascinated. It's fascinating to me that culture. And so I always was like, man, Navy SEAL, Navy SEAL. And so I got out of coaching, and I was working in the private sector, right? And I'm running a team still, so it's motivating and it's recruiting and it's a little bit of everything, turning the dial up on people. But I had a little more time on my hands, and I started really getting into podcasts. I'm really getting into audiobooks, and I'm doing a lot of that at the time. And this was 2015-ish. And I ran across Extreme Ownership, which was the book had just gotten released. And that's Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Leif was one of Jocko's guys in Task Unit Bruiser. And I actually heard Jocko on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and he came on Joe Rogan. And that was before the Jocko podcast had started, but I went and I read the audiobook, and it was incredible. Extreme Ownership is incredible. And it was all these, leadership lessons from war, essentially, and from the SEAL community. And then they take a section of it and they relate it to private sector business and all the things that they do from a consulting standpoint. So I was like, man, this is applicable. So I started just following his journey, and all of a sudden, boom, up pops the Jocko podcast. And I'm like, heck yeah. I'm a trooper, as they call them, man. So I started listening to it every week. It started popping up every Wednesday morning. It still does, man. And I forget what episode they're on, 2000 of them now or whatever, but he's been doing it. And they were reading these books and had all these like POWs on from Vietnam. I mean, just incredible history of our military. And Jocko is such an appreciator and has such appreciation for the community, and great leader. I enjoyed listening to him. And he also has an authentic personality. So I had a chance to just follow that journey, man. And all of a sudden, a buddy of mine texted me. I had moved back we're in Rhode Island, and it's 2017. And he goes, hey, man, Jocko's speaking up at MIT in Boston.
Yeah, I can't spell MIT.
And I'm like, what? He's going to be at MIT and it's free. I'm like, dude, all right. So it's like a Tuesday. I'm like, I'm in, man. So I reserved the ticket or whatever on the little app deal. I drive up to MIT, and I'm sitting in a room that is probably the size of 2 classrooms in a high school. Like, it's not big. It's a classroom essentially in one of these student centers in the MIT. I've never been on MIT's campus, probably will never get back, right? So I'm sitting in there, and Jocko comes in, man, and he gives one of these just hairs raising up on the back of my neck. I'm fired up, man. And I don't even remember what the content was about, because I've heard so much stuff from Jocko over the years, man. But we had already been reading Way of the Warrior Kid, the first one. At that time, there was only one. And so I brought the book. Me and my oldest son, David, had been reading it. Axel was too young at the time. And we actually are reading them all right now with my youngest. That's what I'm doing with Axel. But Jocko goes, hey, man, I got some inside info for you. There's going to be a second book. And I'm like, yeah, dude. So I had a chance to talk to him a little bit about Virginia Beach, because he was stationed in Virginia Beach for a number of years. Jocko surfs, I surf, all that. So got a chance to go up there and just kind of rap with him for, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes. There was a little bit of a line to meet him. But honestly, a lot of the people that were there, I'm not sure they had the true appreciation for who this dude was at the time. And then now, fast forward another 5.5 years later, they've got Jocko Fuel, they got Origin, they got all this stuff. And I buy as much stuff as I can that has his name on it to support him, because what his message of consistency, discipline, being authentic, being yourself, pushing through the thing. It's not as extreme as a David Goggins. I've got appreciation for David too.
Yeah, but he's more of an intellectual than Goggins.
He 100%.
Goggins is more of the.
He's barbaric.
I don't know. I might be the Goggins. I'm the idiot. I'm like I go and but he thinks. Jocko's a thinker.
Yeah, he is. It's fascinating to listen to Jocko, in my opinion. It's unbelievable when you listen.
Why is he not president of our country?
Well, he should be. He should be. I'll be honest. And I don't doubt.
I mean, why is he not? He's the George Washington today.
I don't doubt that he'll run. I'll be honest. I don't doubt that he'll run.
When?
I think we're 10 or 12 years later, 10 or 12 years out from that. He's always said, I've listened to him. He was on there, he went on Rogan with Tulsi Gabbard one time, and he's been on there.
There you go. That's the ticket. Let's go.
That's the ticket, brother. I'm telling you, I love it.
I mean, it's all about winning. Have you ever seen Vice?
No.
Oh, man. I know you're conservative, okay? You're a military guy.
Yep.
But in the movie Vice, Dick Cheney.
I did see this recently, dude. I just watched this probably 3 months ago. You're right.
Oh,
yeah, Dick Cheney.
Do you remember when Dick Cheney is sitting in there and he's like, I guess he's an intern or whatever they call him. He's a page or what, I don't know. And then like the guy next to him, and he goes, what party's that guy in? He's a Republican. I want to be in his party. And it was Donald Rumsfeld. But fast forward a few, I don't know if it's a months or years, and he looks at Rumsfeld and he goes, what do we believe? And Rumsfeld just goes, what do we believe? Like, dude, you're trying to win. And if you're trying to win, put the best ticket. Just like I'm a Grizzlies fan, put the best players on the field. Hey, Chris Beatty, get the best player of the ball.
No doubt. Players not played.
This might have. I teach about Japan. We're learning about Japan and world history, and we're talking about the samurai. We're talking about the Bushido, and we're talking about Shintoism, anime. A lot of anime is based on Shinto, so it's like the way of the warrior kid. They're teaching them their culture and their belief system through anime. Some of it, I don't know anything about anime, but the warrior kid is the same thing. It's a head fake. You think you're learning one thing, but you're really learning something else.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Like if we're trying to win and we're trying to be the best, and I teach them, that in the Virginia SOLs that historians believe that Japanese culture came from China and Korea. Well, I had a kid in my class once that was from Korea, and he told me, he said, Coach, you're wrong about that. Our culture influenced the Chinese. Everybody thinks they're the best. Everybody thinks they're the first. So what is wrong with us, the U.S., saying that we're the best and we're the greatest? And if we want to be the greatest, we got to have the greatest guy running with the greatest running mate to win. Mm-hmm. Is it because we don't know what we believe? And what we believe, is there a price? Why are you not in politics? Are you too honest?
I think in the next handful of years I will be in the state. Well,
you got my vote.
I appreciate you, brother.
I'm voting.
I gotta let my kids get a little bit older. Being a single dad, man, and trying to bounce around. It's demanding, but at the state level, I think it's important, man. I think we've got a lot of phonies and in general in politics that are career politicians, and I think more regular people need to get involved, man. And I've been saying that for a number of years, but I think even prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic kind of showed a lot of folks how important local and state government is. And so I say, you know what, man, I want to be the governor. By the time I'm 55, I'll be the governor in Rhode Island.
Man. Well, I'm gonna make a trade. All right, we're going to trade somebody down here for you so you can come to Virginia and be the governor, and you won't have to spend $20 million to become the governor.
No doubt. No doubt.
But leadership. I mean, it's almost like educational leadership. I mean, it's like an oxymoron. You don't have to be smart and you don't have to be a leader. Jocko Willink What would he do if he was president?
I think Jocko, man, listening to him, I've always had an appreciation for guys like him that I think, and obviously everybody has a bias and a skew, right? But I think a guy like him, through dialogue that I've heard, can understand the importance of being able to listen to what would be an opposing view and being able to say, listen, I hear those things. There's a compromise in there somewhere. And he's not a radical right or left person, right? Like that's what I try to remind people. I say, listen, man, 10% is radical right, 10% is radical left. And that other 80% is me and you that all are trying to figure out, how much do I owe in my taxes? What tax bracket am I in? I'm trying to coach my kids. I'm trying to go to the gym. I'm trying to watch football, coach football, change lives, and just live, man. Most of us are in moderate. We're saying I can appreciate the fact that somebody has less than me, and we should give them a nice bump and a nudge to help them at times. And then other part of me says, can we be fiscally responsible here and understand where our money's going? Because just sending X number of dollars to countries outside of the U.S. when we have broken cities that have been broken for decades and decades, and we've never once tried to clean up Baltimore, and we're paying for $100 billion in a Ukraine. It's just beyond me. So those are the things where I think some people like a Jocko and a Tulsi Gabbard, from all the content I've heard from them, is that's what they believe. The problem becomes money and corporate interest and those things, right? It's all about lobby. And that's where people, when you go in with honest and good intentions, unfortunately, so many people have a price, man. They have a price for their spirit, a price for their soul, and they take it.
Yeah. And once you take it, you can't get it back.
Can't get it back, man. They'll get you out of there quick, right? It's like you got to be on a side when you're there, and that's the system. The system needs to be blown up in general, and I don't mean that literally, folks.
Yeah.
But the system's got to be broken down, man.
All right, so we're getting into some deep stuff now. Okay, we've passed just the championship football coaches clinic. We're trying to change the world here. Now, this is 2 football coaches. This is a guy who loves John Gruden. Tell everybody, all right, what I gave you about John Gruden.
Dude.
Do you remember?
Yeah, the bobblehead. But John Gruden, man, that's one. Me and Troy, me and you, we relate on the John Gruden now. I mean,
John Gruden is the smartest man in the world and the stupidest man in the world. He should have never left Monday Night Football.
No
Deuce
doubt about
would have
that.
been able to get a job in the NFL without you taking the head coaching job. You were the greatest color commentator of all time. You are the biggest football junkie ever.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We love you. Like, we looked up to you.
Incredible quarterback series that he had for the longest of times.
Yes.
Love the quarterback
fired because of the Redskin owner leaking emails. But
I remember, just vaguely a little bit about his deal with some email stuff, and certainly don't want to advocate for any offensive language or anything that was in there in terms that shouldn't be used. And I will say that John Gruden was an inspiration from a coaching standpoint for me. I think he did have some higher level intellect around football than many coaches that he not only competed against, but they worked for him. I did gain a lot of inspiration from Coach Gruden. I started saying pound the rock many years ago because that was one of the things that Rod Marinelli brought to the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers team when they were able to get over the hump and win the Super Bowl after Tony Dungy kind of had hit a ceiling a little bit with but had great players there. But man, it was fun to watch, and I loved reading his book and just inundating myself with as much John Gruden film that I could get my hands on, man, because I was fortunate. I had a lot of buddies that were in the NFL. They used to send me so much NFL film, man. I used to get anything I wanted. If I wanted a great tight end, when I started coaching tight ends, I say, hey, send me, at that time, Kellen Winslow Jr. was a great player. I say, send me a bunch of Kellen Winslow film. Send me a bunch of Jeremy Shockey. Send me a bunch of this. I want to watch these guys on tape. I want to show my players because these are the guys they're emulating and want to be like,
Yeah.
So let me get let me get Antonio Gates on film and show my tight ends at Norfolk State And I did the same thing at any time because they just were thrilled, but also said, hey, this is how you watch film. Don't just watch it like you're watching the TV copy, man. You need to watch it from a film standpoint. But it got people interested, and now, you're blessed with Huddle and a lot of these other things where guys can kind of assign some film to their players a little better than what we could back then. But yeah, man, I was very fortunate to kind of just learn a lot from Coach Gruden, man.
The greatest football speakers of all time that I've heard have been Gruden, Greg Williams, and they're people, when they talk, they ooze football from their soul. And then when they're done, you almost question yourself and how much you love it. Like, they make you question yourself. Like Jocko Willink, I'm pretty sure, would make me question myself. Like, Troy, what are you doing with your life? Like, look at this guy. And I'm just talking about politics. I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've been told. And I know this for to be a fact. I've never said this publicly. Steve, when I started these, my former assistant coach, Shane, said, Troy, you're going to talk too much. And, nobody really knows you because you never go on camera talking. So I'm going to say this. When I was in high school, I was a senior. My parents got me and my brother and our friends tickets to go see WWF or WCW, whatever it was. It was WCW. And that was right when the NWO was happening. So when we went, someone found out, hey, man, all the wrestlers are going to be at the bar next to the Coliseum, the sports bar. So we're 17-year-old kids. I mean, I don't think we turned 18. We graduated. We go into the sports bar, and there's Ric Flair, and there's the Macho Man, and there's Arn Anderson, and there's Bobby the Brain Heenan, and there's the Steiner brothers, and there's Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster, and there's the Giant. I mean, dude, they're all in there. And these same guys were just fighting each other. But I was a kid, and I was like, hold on. I was like, these guys actually like each other? Like, what's going on here? And then fast forward, I hear, Jesse Ventura. I know there's a lot of controversy around him and the SEAL community. And, what's his name? Tried to fight him, beat him up. One of the guys, who was it? Marcus Luttrell.
Yeah.
He said that politics is like professional wrestling, that when the camera's on, they don't like each other. Yep. But when the camera's off, they're all friends. And it made me think, like, wow, dude. Like, when I was a kid, I saw it. I didn't understand it, but I saw it. Do you believe that?
100%. I say it all the time. Anybody that will listen to me, I get on rants every once in a while, but I 100% believe it.
That's why I don't have a team. That's why I'm neutral.
That's I would say I'm closer to libertarian, if anything, but I'm in the middle, man. I'm in the middle, and I'll be honest, I don't like any of them.
They don't like you. They don't like you. They don't care about you.
No, they want to squash you, man. They want to control you, and they want your money, and that's it. And they know they skim your money. Every time it goes through a direct deposit, they take a skim, and they take that money and they do whatever they want with it. And they want to tell you.
What is the U.S. budget this year? Is it 22 trillion? What is it like?
Trillions, man. Oh, it's so bad. So, and again, it's one of those things that's a little depressing to the point where I tell people, listen, control your 3-foot world, man. It's like a rock climber. Control what's 3 feet around you on any given side.
What's important now?
What's important now? And if you build alliances within your own community, when the thing hits the fan and ammunition is currency, right? And you need food, and they're talking about all these power shortages now and grid shutting down, it's things you got to at least be aware of. Now, I know we all like to be in our bubbles. I like to go to the beach every day. I like to do fitness. I like to be a parent. And I go to work and I work my tail off. And then I come home and I sit in a sauna sometimes and I do whatever, right? We all like to be in our bubble. But at the same time, there is some preparation to be had to get ourselves prepared. But I can assure you, no one is coming to save you. And you are not on the same team as that group. And if you think you identify with one side or the other more, your side will eventually let you down. And they are coming for you at some point. And I know that for 100%.
When are they're coming for me? Is it the alphabet people?
some way that something you believe and something you believe in will be threatened at any given point. And I reminded people a ton during a lot of this pandemic stuff. I think it all went through these different stages of, some people didn't think they were going to get sick, right? Like most of us, you had a sweeping policy that took into account, and they never wanted to admit that everybody that was really susceptible to COVID early on were elderly or sickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this sweeping policy, right? So if you didn't believe in that, you were kind of an outsider, and you started getting your freedoms got threatened a little, and everybody tried to call you a far right Trumper, conspiracy theorist, whatever, where again, most of us are all just living our lives, man, and can't stand any of these people. But at the same time, when you start to tell me what I'm allowed to do versus what I'm not, what's protected, then I'm gonna get sideways. But I do know none of these folks are your friends. They're not on your side. You can keep voting them into office if you want, or you can step up and start creating new leaders in your in your communities. If you want to think, there's certain minorities are underrepresented in state and federal politics. Well, we got to start creating some leaders that are minorities. We need to figure out a way that says, hey, the guy that makes between $30,000 and $50,000, if he wants representation at the state level, we have to create those leaders, because the guys that are in career politics, they have no use for you. They just want your vote.
Like a guy that would graduate from law school and within a year is already a politician. Yeah.
Yep. And he's got a job lined up. He's got a corporate job lined up later on. All he's got to do is cast a number of votes that are in the best interest of a corporate partner of some kind. And then he's a consultant making six figures when he's done, in between runs for whatever political office they can get in. I mean, it's a game. It's a game.
Yeah. What do we believe? What team do you want to be on? I don't know what team is that guy on.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about being on a team. If I told you, Steve Canter, that you could be in control of Amazon, which is almost worth $1 trillion, that you could be a part of that team and spend $22 trillion a year. And the next year you get to spend $22 trillion again. That would be pretty good, right? But that's never going to happen. You're never going to be a part of the Amazon. All right. NFL is worth $50 billion. They don't spend $22 trillion a year, and the next year spend $22 trillion. If I could tell you could be on a team that was responsible for spending $22 trillion. Like one time I watched the State of the Union, and I looked at the people that were in that room, and I wondered why they wanted to be on that team. And there was 22 trillion reasons why they wanted to be on that team, because Amazon don't spend 22 trillion a year. They're only worth a little bit less than $1 trillion. So why do people want to be on that team? Whatever team it is, you got the Red Sox and the Yankees, the Redskins, the Cowboys, whatever you want to call them, the two sides. It's sad, man. And it's hopefully people like Jocko Willink and yourself, we can have leadership, that care about people,
Well, the reason I think the reason I'm so passionate about that, and again, I don't claim to be, incredibly knowledgeable on politics in general. I do keep up, and I am intelligent. I got 2 master's degrees. I mean, I can read and look at some things and what have you, and also stay unemotional about certain aspects.
Yeah, I'm not, man. I'm the low man on the totem pole. I don't even watch TV.
Well, and that's the thing I will say is, again, the reason we identify with part of that is, as coaches, we're middle America, man.
Yeah,
we're middle America,
kids.
Right?
We're helping kids.
And so we are bringing up youth and people and helping humans in general. And you know what's not profitable? Humans. They're not. At the end of the day, that we don't consider, that's why we don't pay teachers a ton of money, because it's not a product. We don't look at the development of a kid as a product, because we can't sell it. All that person is a liability, because it costs money. And that's why when you look at AI and you look at robots and everything else, because we will fight them eventually, is those people take our place, because they don't need to eat all day. They don't need to do all those things. So I identify with a lot of this, because we've been sitting in middle America for a long time as a coach, and we've been doing our absolute best to develop.
When you say middle America, what does that mean?
To me, middle America means the same thing I was just talking about this 80% of people that want to just live,
the
man.
middle class, because that's what you grew up believing, that you were in the middle class. But it's almost like you're middle class. That means you're better than the people who are the lower class. But you're not upper class, so you have people that are better than you. Kind of like when I was in school and I used to cheat off of people and look on their paper because my folks didn't go to college and I was from Courthouse Green. Oh, you're middle class. We're not lower class. We're middle class. We're better. I mean, it's the same stuff has happened throughout the history of the world.
No doubt.
And, I mean,
it's wild, man.
We're talking about it.
I just the one thing I'm passionate about is are we shaping more leaders? And that doesn't mean they got to go into politics, but are they leading their communities? Are they leading their families, man? If you want to talk about what's an epidemic in life and what is so sad is when we're watching these teenagers and kids, even as early as these elementary school kids, where they are committing some atrocities out there because of lack of supervision, a lack of leadership in their home, whether it's moms, dads not there present because we're all out working to be able to afford to live. And you have the nuclear family. It doesn't exist. It's been broken up and shattered. There's a lot of things that are impacting us. And you know who can save the day and who's been saving the day for a long time? That's ball coaches. That's coaches and teachers, man. I wholeheartedly believe in it. The profession of teaching is as noble as it gets. Keep your ideologies out of the room, bro, and go teach a person how to be a good person. Yes. How to be responsible.
Yeah.
Don't tolerate nonsense. And when you're in administration, you back up your teachers. Have some backbone, man. Stand up to the parents. If they think little Johnny didn't do it, that's horse-ish. We know it. That's nonsense.
When I was assistant principal one year, and John Gordon, who's the head of Suffolk County Schools, now he played basketball at UVA and went to Hermitage, and he was basketball coach at Meadowbrook. He told me, he said, Troy, when you're an administrator and you're a principal, the teachers are your players. I was like, what? I was like, I thought the students would be your players. No, the teachers are your players because you got to get them to buy in, and you got to get them to buy into your philosophy. And, you're going to have some players that don't show up to practice. You're going to have some teachers that don't show up on time or don't show up to work. And are they, you say, oh, the kid's not listening to me. We've lost control. Well, we're all in this together, I guess that's pretty much what we got into is, we're in this together.
We're in this together. But you just say, that's at the end of the day, man. That's why I was always bothered by, I took over for Coach Beatty. We went to 3 straight state championships at Lansdowne. We were a all, heavy minority school. We were the winners, right? Like it's the reason people didn't like the Yankees and some other teams that win all the time. We were winning and we did it with a chip on our shoulder. And Chris is a chip on his shoulder kind of guy. It drives him. It fuels him. He is a fantastic human being and person and coach, but he will get chippy. And there was teachers in that school that felt like we were getting this so many extras or we just weren't doing things the right way.
Haters. They wanted to see the school go down.
So I took over. I wasn't even in the building when I was an assistant. I was teaching at an elementary school. So I came over. I got the head football job. Anybody that remembers that transition. So Chris Beatty leaves to go to Hampton, which is actually when I first met you and your head coach at Meadowbrook.
Coach Bowles. You guys were there the same day you were just talking about when you went clinic with Chris at Hampton. You were there?
I came over later in the day and met you guys on your way out.
How late in the day was it? Because we were there pretty late.
I was there. I came over like literally right as you guys were there leaving. And I came over and was chopping it up with Chris.
Yeah, I remember that. Too. I remember that.
But
that's crazy. That's crazy. Then we're here today.
That's wild. And that was 2006. Yes.
There's somebody else leading the ship. There's somebody else that's steering the ship. It's definitely not me because I'm not very smart. I don't even know how I got on today on this computer.
But man, there was this minor, during Chris leaves, none of us assistants really wanted the job. And we were all stressed to death. We had just gotten done. Dwight's worried about basketball. He's already the head basketball coach. Tom Anderson's the head track coach. He doesn't want the job. Ramey had already, had his little incident in 2004, had missed a year. So they weren't going to give it to Chris Ramey. So here I am. I'm looking at jobs out in other parts of the state. I'm just, here I am. I'm like an assistant. I really want to be in college coaching. And Dave Hudak gets the job. Dave Hudak was a longtime head coach at Granby High School. Coach was 500. Dave's a super nice guy. I interacted with him just briefly, but he was coming over. He was 500. That was his record. And he was going to come over and take over for the best school in the state. And so he came over.
Why? Who did he know? Who was he related to?
So what happened was,
because
again,
that's what they did at Hermitage High School. They blew that whole program up.
Well, no one wanted the job. No one wanted to follow Chris.
Yeah,
no
who would?
We were 40-2.
Good point. I'm the only one that's stupid enough to follow Hall of Fame.
I was the only dumbass too. So, and Dave lived not far from Lansdowne, and he was driving past Lansdowne to go to Granby all the time. So he came over. He took the job. I met with him to be an assistant, but he was there for about 3 months, and then he left. He went back to Granby. They never hired anyone else at Granby. He went back to be the head man. And so they called me. They said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah, I'm dumb enough to take it." I was already part of the staff. So we lose Taj Boyd in the meantime. He leaves. I had just coached Taj, on JV on offense, and I was the linebacker coach on varsity. And so we lose Taj, lose a couple other kids. But I come and be the head football coach. But I get in the building, and everyone just wants to treat me like I'm Chris Beatty. And Chris and I are very different people, man. I don't run certain things the way Chris runs them. I don't look at the school. I was a special ed teacher. I wasn't a PE teacher. I couldn't just come to school and roll the ball out. Chris said it himself. He was the worst PE teacher in the state, whatever. I didn't have that opportunity. I was a special ed teacher.
He knows himself.
So, at the same time, man, I take over, and it was just interesting. And the reason I tell that story is it was interesting to see how some teachers responded to the football coaches as if we weren't all on the same team. I always invited these people. They said, "Oh, I wish I had your class load or whatever." And I go, "Hey, well, I'll see you after school then, from January through all the way. And then I'll see you in August. Why don't you start coming in August then? If you want the stipend, if you want all the things that you think I got, like I got it so good, I'm getting $6,500 a year to do all what I'm doing here." So I used to remind them, but the fact that they didn't think we were all on the same team, man, here we are impacting. I got 100 kids on my football team. You don't think I'm making as much of an impact as you are, and you're teaching, 3 classes of 20? Come on, man, we're all on the same team. So that's where that administration is so important to say, guys, we got a football program here. We're going to support it. We're going to love it. And we're going to say, you know what? They used to get mad at me because I would leave class briefly to talk to college coaches on the behalf of our kids whose lives were going to get changed by going to school and getting a degree. It might be first generation college kids. And you're mad.
There's some schools in the Richmond area, the college coaches tell me that they're not even allowed to come into the school.
Can't be in the building.
They will not let the college. I mean, it's kind of almost archaic. It's old school for college coaches actually to do on campus, on high school campus visits, because I mean, I don't think any other sport does it. It's all the recruiting's through AAU. I mean, I guess it's through AAU, it's through travel ball, but football it's a dinosaur, man, when it comes to that. So it's nuts.
It's so wild. It's just, to me, again, it's about leadership, man. And that's what I'm passionate about, leadership. Always have been as a coach. I was as a player. I was the guy that was rallying dudes, man. I'm turning my hat inside out and rally cap in baseball. I was that guy. I've always been that guy. It's in my spirit. And I just transferred that over into coaching and had a great run, 12 years on the sideline. And now I just coach my own kids. I'm running. We got right before we jumped on here, I was at a community workout. I work out a bunch of kids for free once a weekend, and just to get these kids physically fit, man. We got a lot of kids out there that are challenged from a physical standpoint. They don't get out of the house enough. And I'm passionate about health and wellness. And I say, hey, get your butt here, man, free of charge. And we're going to put you through one. And don't come here if listen, we're going to harden you. And that's the plan.
Like, you are in your sons' lives, so they know you and they know they've seen it. Like my dad used to tell me, Troy, like I would rather see a sermon than hear one any day. Seeing the sermon is better than telling somebody. But like I told you, maybe like we're documenting history with this. Like in 10 years or 20 years or longer, if your sons were to watch this, like what would you say to them, man? I mean, you might get emotional, but what would you say to them?
I think the most important for David and Axel to know, man, is I did my best, right? Like I value consistency. There's not a day that goes by that I don't tell those dudes how much I love them. I care about them. I try to be a great leader to them. I listen, right? I think that's where, from a parenting standpoint, is, are we building relationships with them where they want to tell us everything? It's so important, because right now when they're 11 and 7, most of those things aren't that heavy. Those decisions aren't that heavy. But man, by the time they're 15, they're 16, they're 18, they're experimenting with drugs and alcohol, they're doing these things. I want them to be able to say, Dad, you know what? I screwed up, man. And I want to say, hey, let me help you through it. But if they're scared to come to me, because every time they do, I blow up, just like that ball coach that blows up on the sideline all the time, instead of saying, you know what? If I had listened to my quarterback, he told me what the safety was doing. I thought I saw it. But these guys are so quick to blow up on everybody about, you run RPOs now. The kid's going to make a bad decision, guys. He's reading things at real time, bro. Like, and we can't coach the next play. Like, coach the next play. And so I want my kids to know, man, listen, try my best. I was consistent. I love the heck out of you. And I tried to be the best leader and live an honorable life, to the point where you say, hey, I want to be what my dad was, and to other people. And that's my goal all the time, man. When I get up every day, I jump out of bed, man, with a chance to try to, educate, motivate, and inspire somebody.
So what are you doing now other than that? Like, are you in the private sector? Do you still do the motivational speaking? Dude, you're the one that should be having the podcast, not me. I mean, look at me, dude. I
like jumping on somebody's, man, giving a little dose of some fuel and getting out of there, man. I preach a little bit on my own Instagram I do my Woo Wednesdays on Instagram. I do sometimes some Sunday thoughts. Usually it's something after I get done running. I'm thinking about parenting, man, and this battle, this journey of what it is. And if it might help somebody, I like to do a little preaching on there for a minute or two. You know what? I do a little motivational speaking. I went down and did some leadership consulting stuff at another custom home builder here recently. I work full-time as a chief performance officer. If that is not a fitting title for a ball coach and a guy that's converted into the private sector, I work for Sweener Builders, man. We're the best custom home builder in the state of Rhode Island, and one of the best in New England. And so I'm fortunate, man. I get to work with a amazing workforce and really drive some organizational change, and then also hold people accountable, man. If we have expectations, we're going to meet them. If you're not, you won't be here. I love them up. I go around the job site. I'm like an HR, human resources type of guy as well. I do all the hiring, the firing, the recruiting, the loving guys up, all those things. It's such a fitting job for me, man. It's basically, I'm a construction coach. I get to bounce to job sites.
And those guys are your players.
Those are my guys. Those are my guys, man. And I work directly for the boss. And I'm in the C-suite. As somebody reminded me one day, you're the chief performance officer. I was like, dude, I don't see that stuff, man. Like, I got a job to do. I know what it is. If I can make an organization better, that's what I'm all about. So I do that full time. And then like I said, I get a chance to kind of influence my own kids and other kids in the community, some other parents in the community. And, I live a good life, man. I'm a quarter of a mile from the beach. I surf, I swim in the water. I cold plunge when it's cold. I'm passionate about fitness, but I'm passionate about people, man. I want to develop people. And, I'm fortunate. I'm kind of in this small pond, of Southern Rhode Island, where I can touch a lot of different souls here. And I preach at my church, do a little bit of everything, man.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on. I want to shout our sponsor out, Rack Coach. Rack Coach is a program that brings structure to your weight room. Not everybody's got a Chris Ramey running the weight program, but that thing, dude, it's like, boop, put the weight on, boop, lift, boop, change. And it's like color coded, Coach.
That's
and
incredible.
they've been good to us. So I appreciate them. Anything you'd like to leave us with, or how people can get in contact with you, Coach? We almost done 2 hours, man.
I love it, man. I could talk ball forever. It's so good to connect with you, man. I love what you're doing. I love it. These initiatives to reach out to people and have a chance to get folks on and share stories, man. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a path, a journey. We're all on our own journey. Comparison's a thief of joy, man. So don't worry about Chris Beatty's with the Chargers and I'm just a high school guy and all this. Coach, you're making an impact, man. Guys went from the bottom and now I'm here, or whatever the lyrics are, man. But at the same time, like, work your tail off, influence the people around you in a way that you think is positive and that you want to be remembered that way. Folks can find me at Canter Zone on Instagram. You can see me, Steve Canter, on Facebook. I just share mostly stuff on Instagram and it goes over into Facebook. But man, I'm happy to talk to anybody too, man. DM me. We'll share stories. We'll share journeys. I love to follow folks' journeys and really just try to give them a little fuel to do a little bit better, man. And get up earlier, get up an hour earlier. You can accomplish more, man.
Yeah, you get more done. I mean, you got more time in your day.
You do.
Yeah, no doubt, Coach. So you're the best. Thank you, Coach. We're going to have you back on, man.
I'd love to.
Let me know when you're going to come back.
You got it, man. Love you guys, man. Appreciate you, Troy.
Thank you.
See you, buddy.